Good morning all. This is the battery from my electric bike. It's a Curry Electro Drive. This originally had two big 12-volt lead acid batteries in it wired in series. Well, I took them out because they'd failed, and I put in 8 lithium iron phosphate cells. They're 10 amp hours each, made by Headway. And of course they're all wired in series as well. Now of course with them being lithium we need a balance connector. So here's the 9-pin balance connector. I've marked the positive and the negative ends of it. And up here is a 3-pin. It's a bit like an IEC connector. I'll just illuminate it. But 2 of the pins are the normal way around, and the earth pin, as it would normally be, is actually going a crossway. So it's a slightly modified IEC connector, and 2 of these pins are for charging, which you can do at any time, and then another pair of pins are actually for drawing power, but they're controlled by a relay, and the relay is only turned on when you put the key in here. And I think if I put the key in here, probably shouldn't really show keys on video in case someone decides to copy them. Mind you, I can't remember what half these keys do, so probably doesn't matter too much. But when I put the key in here, I think there's a click. Yeah, so there's a 24-volt relay in there, which the key turns on, and then that puts power on that other connector on the other side. Now I've also got a selection of devices which I can use to monitor the 8 lithium iron phosphate cells in here. I've got this little radio control 8S battery voltage monitor, which has 9 pins on the connector there. I got this one, which was in the last post bag I did yesterday, I think it was, which is a similar sort of thing, the dual buzzer and a means to set the alarm voltage below which this will start alarming. I've got this capacity controller, even though I don't think it actually does any controlling. Also, this is no use for this battery pack because this only goes up to 7 cells. You can see it only goes up to 7 there. However, this one, the cell meter, which actually ironically is more of a controller because it does have a discharge mode. This one goes up to 8 cells, so it has the full 9 pins here, and it does actually have a discharge and balance mode, but it's feeble. It does it at such a low current that it barely impacted this thing at all. I think I left it on for a couple of hours and it just sort of didn't really do anything. So let's connect one of these things. Let's have a look. I put a negative marker in there. Yes, that's that side. So let's connect this one, which beeps. Oh, that's actually quite a tight fit on the connector. Oh no, that goes on. So that will run through now all of the cells, 3.31. If these look a bit low, they are lower on lithium iron phosphate. I think you can go down to 2 point something on this chemistry. So it's just running through all of the cells, 3.26, and then the whole voltage is 26.4, and then back through all of the cells again. So that's that one. Let's try this capacity, this cell meter 8. Got to get the negative in the right place. That's there. Oops, that didn't go on. Right, so that's beeped, and that's giving me 26.41 volts for the whole pack. Now I think if I press cell, I can look at the individual cells. Now is that going to auto increment through? That's 1S, 3.3. No, I think I have to manually go through them. 3.301. This claims it's showing it to 3 decimal places, but how actually accurate that is, one doesn't know. So we can go through all the cells on that unit. But as I say, this one doesn't really discharge very effectively because the discharge current is so small. So in order to take this project further, I've just received this. It's the iSDT. Now it's not called BatGo. BatGo is actually a technology. It's a new idea that has been sort of invented by a consortium of companies. It seems primarily iSDT and Banggood, which is interesting, to provide data through the XT60 connector. We'll have a look at that when I open this up. But anyway, this is the iSDT BG-8S. So this is an 8-cell monitor, and it's got a very nice quality screen on it. And it also has a discharge mode, I think, at quite a reasonable current. So it'd be interesting to plug this unit onto my 8-cell battery and first of all check the monitoring side of things, and then see if it will balance this monstrous great pack, discharge it. It won't charge it, of course, because this isn't a charger, and do all that stuff. So this device has been very kindly supplied by banggood.com, so thanks very much to Banggood, and I'll put a link in the description below the video so that you can go and have a look at this device. It is a tracking link, so Banggood will be monitoring how many people go and look at this as a result of this video. Right, so let's get this package open and take a look at the unit inside the box. And there it is, fire hazard. I'm not quite sure why there's a fire hazard. Oh, well, I suppose once you connect a battery to it, there is a potential fire hazard. Oh, right, that's quite dinky, isn't it? Now, the BatGo system uses an XT60 connector, you can see it there, with an additional pin. So you can just see there some sort of metallic contact at the top. So it's a modified XT60, but it is backward compatible, so you can plug in a standard non-modified one. So this is monitoring both the main battery voltage plus taking whatever comes down that pin, and I'm guessing it's some sort of one-wire data system using a little chip built into the lithium pack, really just full of identifying information so that this device knows what kind of pack it's looking at. And of course we've got a 9-pin balance port here, which hopefully I can plug into my bicycle 9-pin balance port on there. And I'm hoping this will work just from the balance port. I'm hoping you don't need that, otherwise I've got to make up a complicated cable to go to the battery. So let's peel off this sticker and power this thing up. Now there's a sticker on here that says before plug-in input source, make sure output voltage range must be within operating voltage. Well, what does that mean? And in the manual it also says exactly the same thing here. Before you plug in the input source, make sure the output voltage range must be within operating voltage. I've no idea what they're talking about, so I think I'm probably going to have to download the user guide at our web. Right, well the manual doesn't really expand on this, but I think what they're probably saying is before you plug in the input source, make sure the output voltage of the input source, in other words the battery, must be within the operating voltage of this device. But this works from 5 to 36 volts, so that's pretty much any LiPo or pack, including my bike battery, which was 26 point something. So I should be fine to just plug this in and go. But what I'll do is I'll just plug in a smaller LiPo pack first and see what we get. Right, so let's start with this one. This is a Dynegy 1500 milliamp hour. This is 4 cells. You can see them quite clearly there. Now on the XT60 connector, you can see where there's a little indent, but there's no metal work in there. So this battery is not BatGo compatible. It will plug in there, but it just won't make connection with that little metal pin. So we won't get all that additional information that BatGo provides. But let's plug this in and just see if it works. And it does. And of course it can't give me cell voltage information because I haven't plugged in the balance connector yet. Now plugging in the balance connector, there is a negative mark there to show you the negative end, which is very helpful. Also it does say in the manual that if you plug this in the wrong way around, it's protected against damage, so that's also good to know. So let's plug that in. It's a bit tricky, that end. And yeah, immediately we've got cell voltage information, 3.79 across the board, but with slightly different millivolt numbers there. Now it says in the manual that this thing is accurate to 5 millivolts, I believe. Right, so also on this screen we've got the total pack voltage, which is 15.14 or 15, and the difference between cells is being shown as 4 millivolts. So you can see the lowest one is 793 and the highest one is 797. So that's the 4 millivolts difference between cells. Right, let's just start pressing buttons. So let's start with the middle one. Receiver tester alarm tone, low voltage alarm. So that looks like several settings. Here we have USB charge. Yes, that's right. There's a USB port on here for charging your phone. Now, I was just wondering actually whether this would very sensibly use a phone, because let's face it, our phones are always lacking in power. Whether it would use the phone as a sort of discharge destination. I don't know. That'd be quite interesting to find out, wouldn't it? I suppose it has to in effect, because if you're going to charge your phone, it's got to draw that power from your pack, so it would be discharging it. So it's quite a novel idea. That seems to be it. So we've got that screen with the cell voltages, some functions, something to do with the USB, and the functions again. That appears to be it. Let's check the manual. So in the manual, we've got this page here, which shows what happens if you connect a battery pack that does have the XT60i connector. That's the connector with the additional connection. It seems to show you this screen, total voltage, difference between cells, temperature. So maybe the BatGo chip has a temperature measurement thing in it. It says BatGo, it gives you the date, so that's presumably the date of manufacture. Tells you what type it is, LiPo 6S. Well, if my bike battery were BatGo, I suppose it would say LiPo 8S. Gives you the capacity. What's this? 2C, that's the charge rate. You've got an arrow going into the battery. 25C, that's the discharge rate. That looks like it's the number of charge cycles, so maybe it counts how many times the pack has been charged and discharged, and then some other stuff which I don't know what it is. Okay, well on the very next page, I didn't check, did I? It does actually give you a little table indicating what all these things are. So the things I didn't know were the overtemperature, the number of overtemperature events, the number of battery over discharge events, and the number of battery overcharge events would be my guess. And then of course the second display is the one that we're seeing with the cell voltages. Now interestingly here it shows them to 2 decimal places, although on my unit it's showing them to 3 decimal places, which is rather odd because it says it's got an accuracy of 5 millivolts. Actually, that's a good point. This is showing the accuracy to better than 5 millivolts. You can see that it's actually jumping around in 1 millivolt steps, and we've got a 2 and a 4 and a 5 and a 3 and a 6. So it's actually showing it in 1 millivolt increments, and yet on the back of the box it says here voltage display accuracy plus or minus 5 millivolts. Well, it isn't. It actually seems, oh, it seems to have gone dim. It actually seems to be better than that. So maybe they've upgraded this at some point. Right, now does this have a light? Oh yes, it does have a light. Okay, so the iSDT unit is saying that it's 1.7 amps. This is showing 1.95 amps. This unit's saying 8.8 watts. This one's actually saying 9.7 watts. So maybe this device is reading a tiny bit low. That's what it would appear, assuming the YZX Studio monitor unit is accurate. So that strikes me as quite sensible. You can use a USB device like a power bank or a phone as a load and therefore discharge the pack into that load. The question is it actually balancing when you do that? Don't know yet. Well, in the manual, it says in balancing cells would show as yellow. So the cells that are being balanced, well, it's more of a terracotta really, but they show us this sort of orangey color. Breathe light is green during operation. Well, the screen's just gone off on the unit on the table, and the breathe light is actually flashing green. It says down here, after balancing completed, left side would turn to blue, and the breathe light would turn to blue. So if you just leave it and the screen goes blank, then the breathe light shows you when it's balancing green and when it's finished balancing blue. So just looking at the manual again while that big battery is doing some discharging. In the USB section again, it says when the XT60i, this is the smart XT60 or BatGo, is connected to the battery, the BG-8S, this unit, could perform USB charging function. After 2 minutes, the display will turn off and the breathe light comes on purple, and that matches, of course, the purple panel in the USB charge area. If the current is more than 3 amps or the power is more than 26 watts, it will turn off USB charging. If the temperature is more than 60 degrees, now I don't know whether that's battery temperature or the internal unit temperature. It looks like it's probably battery temperature. So of course that will only work if you've got the the BatGo type of battery. I must get one of those. I'll ask Banggood for one of those BatGo batteries, because that would make it do a lot more than it's doing at the moment. Now, the BatGo mark will only appear if a smart battery is connected. Now, lowest input voltage for a normal battery, if the balance port is connected, then it will use the single cell protection voltage will be the lowest input voltage. Without the balance port connected, the battery total protection voltage would be displayed as the lowest input voltage. Now, if you have a smart battery with that additional wire through which data presumably is coming, single cell protection voltage would always be showed as the lowest input voltage. So does that imply that each of the cell voltages is being transmitted down that single data wire, that third pin in the XT60? It's very interesting. It might actually be able to send sufficient data that it can send all of the individual cell voltages. That could spell the end of balance port connectors altogether in the future. That sounds pretty cool. Now, also in the manual, there's a menu here which appears to be only if you're using a BatGo battery, so a smart battery, which talks about auto storage. Select after how many hours the BatGo smart battery would initiate auto storage function. Storage voltage is indicated there, but also the charge current, which is very interesting. So what's this thing doing? Is it telling the battery to auto storage itself using internal electronics within the battery itself? Or is this talking about this actual unit, the BG-8S, doing this auto storage? In other words, you just leave it permanently connected to your BatGo battery. Yes, that's very interesting. I'll have to look further into that. I'll need a BatGo battery for that. Further down, we've got receiver signal testing. So you can test the signals coming out of each of, well, it looks like 16 channels of the receiver. You've got pulse width modulation testing to analyze the PWM protocol, S-bus testing. So this little unit does a whole bunch of sort of radio control related stuff as well. And if you go to BatGo.org, you can see here it says battery goes smarter, and it talks about the XT60i connector. Best choice for power battery, support BatGo devices. Now you can see most of the stuff here is iSDT devices, so they are a major collaborating partner, and you can see that in the list of collaborating partners we've got iSDT, AMAS, Banggood, SLS, HeliDirect, KDL-IPO is that, and HGB, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff here which tells you, oh, I don't know, what BatGo does, I suppose. Yes, that's the end of the page. So if you want to have a look at that, go to batgo.org. Right, it's some time later, and we do have a blue flashing light. So let's switch the unit on and see what that means. And that, of course, means that the cells are all balanced. Let me get a bit closer so that we can actually read that. Oh, we can now. Okay, so yes, we've got 1 millivolt, possibly 2 millivolts between cells, 26.34 for the pack. All the cell voltages are very similar, 292, 293, 291, 292. And it was running for 1 hour and 41 minutes and balanced the entire pack during that time. Now you've got to bear in mind that this is not top balancing. These cells are not fully charged. Neither is it bottom balancing. This is kind of center balancing when all the voltages are likely to align better anyway. So this doesn't necessarily mean that if I now charge it up, they're all going to top balance. In fact, it absolutely doesn't mean that. But they are all balanced at this voltage level. Now I'm just wondering if I can run the balancing thing again. So cell balance. Maybe it won't do it if it sees that they're all within 1 or 2 millivolts, but that didn't seem to want to start. Oh, that has started. Oh, it is doing it. Okay, so that I have managed to get it going. There's 2 millivolts difference. You can see which cells are red and therefore the ones that are actually being actively discharged. Only one, number 3, isn't, and of course that's the lowest voltage cell. So I'll just let that run through again. That didn't. I think I've actually stopped it now. It's a bit strange, this. Okay. I'm just wondering how you make the screen come back on if it's gone into its dim mode. Maybe you just use one of these up and down buttons. Oh right, I just missed a nice double beep. So let's try balancing again. It did a double beep and the green turned to blue. Let's just see if I can capture that. It's obviously going to sit there for a while until it decides that these are actually all very close. I'm going to have to keep rambling now. Perhaps I'll put a gap in where I can cut something out. That's the double beep. It's gone blue. It's saying there's 1 millivolt between cells, and they do look all very similar. So that's kind of a first look at the iSDT BG-8S battery voltage monitor and cell balancer with the XT60i connector, the BatGo intelligent connector with the extra little connection in there. I think I'd probably be able to get more out of this unit if I actually had a battery that was a BatGo battery, which has the extra connector on there. So I will see if I can get hold of one of those and then maybe take another look at this at some later date. But for the moment, that's it. Cheerio.